Last year, NASCAR announced the new media rights deal that would start taking place in 2025. It would include Fox Sports and NBC, who NASCAR obviously has been working with for almost a decade now. Well, in Fox's case, more than that. But they added that they would return to TNT or Warner Brothers Discovery, and that they would add a new partner, Amazon, with Prime Video, Prime Sports Video, whatever the official name is. But of course, with all this extra distribution and even adding the CW for the Xfinity series, that means that they're going to have to find some extra talent that will be on TV, whether it's the play-by-play, whether it's the color commentary, sideline, or in this case, pit road reporting, or even behind the scenes, pre-race show, all of that stuff. Some of these networks are going to have to find the talent. Well, it all started a few months ago when Dale Earnhardt Jr. decided to leave NBC, who he had been working with since 2018, to go work for both Amazon Prime Video and TNT, Warner Brothers Discovery. But since then, it's been kind of a lot of nothing. We haven't really heard much in terms of who could potentially be going where, or who could be doing what, or any of the lineups, whether it's the TV booth or the pit road reporters, pre-race show. But now we have a little bit more detail. From Adam Stern himself, NASCAR's new media rights partners are casting a wide net to find booth talent, with some expected names like Fox Sports' Adam Alexander and unexpected names like ESPN's Marty Smith among those in the mix, sources say. It then goes down the line and says Smith, who has become a jack-of-all-trades reporter for ESPN across several sports after the network lost NASCAR media rights in 2014, has had discussions with Prime Video and Warner Brothers Discovery about being part of their booths, sources say, a move that could involve hosting and play-by-play responsibility. Smith was a longtime NASCAR reporter for ESPN on air and digitally, but was not part of its booth. NASCAR is still one of his responsibilities for the network, but ESPN now covers NASCAR more sparingly. So let's talk about Marty Smith first. Of course, those of you, including myself, who watched NASCAR on ESPN, it's been 10 years now since NASCAR has been on ESPN. Hard to believe. I always loved NASCAR on ESPN. I love that booth. Alan Bestwick, Dale Jarrett, Andy Petrie. I always thought that was a fun booth. But then Marty Smith on the pit lane doing some pit road reporting, doing some pre-race stuff. And then ever since then, I've really enjoyed his work outside of NASCAR, watching him on Saturdays. Sometimes he makes appearances on College Game Day. He has his own show on the SEC network, and he also does other sports sometimes. I think he's done the Masters before for golf. And a variety of sports. As it said, he's done several sports, but he's still gone to NASCAR races. I remember he covered Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s final race in NASCAR, at least the Cup Series, I should say, back in 2017. So he still stays close to NASCAR. He still follows it extremely closely on his social media. He's constantly posting it. So he is well in the in. He still knows what is going on. So this would be a fantastic choice, whether you put him in the booth, whether you put him in the pit road reporting, whether you have him host the pre-race and post-race show, whatever you have him do. I am 100% open to Marty Smith coming back to NASCAR. He's incredible. He's passionate. And also another thing I think that factors in is that he kind of connects to the traditional fan base. He's from Virginia. He went to college in Virginia. As I said, he's been working in NASCAR. He's been working with the Southeastern Conference. He knows the South. He knows this fan base, and he fits, the traditional NASCAR fan, what the traditional NASCAR fan relates to. And yes, I know NASCAR has expanded its horizons. They race on the streets of Chicago now. We go out west a lot more than we used to. And that's a great thing. Both things are a great thing. NASCAR expanding, trying to reach new fans, that's a great thing. But also appealing to your traditional, your older, your lifelong fans, that's also a great thing. North Wilkesboro's come back and all that stuff. But to have someone there who understands it, who compels, who really just can tell the story, knows the history, and knows what it's like to be in that region of the country, to relate to everyone, I think it's a great thing. And also, he's a younger guy. I think he's in his 40s, I want to say. So he also knows how to appeal to a younger crowd, to a newer generation. He's kind of in the middle, if you want to say. But I think Marty Smith, yes, Amazon and Warner Brothers. I feel like it's going to be hard to pull him from ESPN because he's got a pretty good gig there. He's got a show, he's got a podcast or something like that with ESPN. It's going to be hard to pull him, I feel like. But I know Amazon's got money. I'm sure Warner Brothers has money too. But this could be a fantastic addition, or re-addition, I should say, to the NASCAR world. And if you put him in the booth, I am extremely curious to see how he does. He would be with Dale Earnhardt Jr., whether it's Prime or whether it's Warner Brothers Discovery. Either way, he'd be with Dale Jr. if he was in the booth. And I'm very curious because I think they're actually friends, like outside of the sports world, outside of the media world. So I'm very curious to see how they would click with each other in the booth. I think that could be very exciting. But regardless, I don't care what capacity it is. I don't care if he comes back in the booth, if he just hosts the pre-race and post-race show, or if he's in the pits. Marty Smith back in NASCAR, I think, would be 100% a great decision by either one of those companies. And I would love to see him back in NASCAR in some sort of broadcast role. Now, as for everything else outside of Marty Smith, that was the big one. The rest have to do with people who are already in NASCAR in a broadcasting role and them potentially changing, I guess, networks. Steve Letarte, the current NBC sports broadcaster, who's Earnhardt's former crew chief at Hendrick and former colleague at NBC, has also held talks with Prime Video and Warner Brothers Discovery. Fox Sports' Adam Alexander, a versatile broadcaster who has called Xfinity Series races among other roles for the network, has likewise been a candidate for Prime Video and Warner Brothers Discovery, and has spoken with the CW, which is taking over full season Xfinity Series rights next year. Alexander is seen as the favorite to take over the lead play-by-play commentator for the CW. So two things. Let's go to Adam Alexander first. I think that would be a great move for the CW. I'm always so optimistic. I'm so optimistic, positive, I feel like, on TV broadcasters. You know, I really like Adam Alexander, but right now I don't know if there's a role for him in Cup. There's tough competition. It seems like NBC has their guy in Lee Diffie, which we'll talk about later. Fox Sports, obviously, Mike Joy's going to be there till he retires. I don't know where I don't know where Prime and Warner Brothers Discovery go, but I would hope Alan Bestwick. I can dream, I guess. And then obviously Marty Smith is in contention. So where does that leave Adam Alexander? Fox has really kind of scaled back. Ironically, they've scaled back after announcing this deal that they're going to stay with NASCAR. They're not doing Xfinity anymore. They got rid of Race Hub, which Adam Alexander hosted. So Adam Alexander, really, he doesn't have a role at Fox right now. So his best option would be to leave Fox. And I think him calling the Xfinity races would be a great deal, you know? So I think Adam Alexander calling Xfinity races would be that'd be a win for both sides, if you ask me. Not much else I really feel I got to say on that. As for Steve Letarte, I love Steve Letarte in the booth. He is probably my favorite crew chief I've heard in the booth. Maybe Larry McReynolds would beat him, but Steve Letarte does a great job of explaining the technicalities of the car, strategies when it comes to pit road and pit stops, what a crew chief is thinking in this exact moment. Oh, this caution came out. What is the crew chief in third place thinking? What's the crew chief in 13th place thinking? What are their mindsets and all of that? So I think Steve Letarte does a great job of conveying that. And I think that absolutely he should stay in his booth role. But this would be a blow to NBC if they lost Dale Jr. and Steve Letarte within a year of each other. Obviously, Dale Jr., the most popular driver, probably the most known figure in NASCAR still. Losing him was a big hit. But Steve Letarte, in my opinion, I don't know if it would be as big of a hit, but it would be a pretty massive hit. A former crew chief for Dale Jr., yes. But also, as I said, he just does a great job of telling everyone what's going on, but he doesn't overcomplicate it. He doesn't start throwing out random measurements and you're sitting at home like, what does that mean? Why? What does 2.876 turns of the wedge wrench inside of the crankshaft? Like, making stuff up here. he doesn't overcomplicate it, and I think he does a great job in the booth. So that would be a huge loss for NBC because they would have to fill that vacancy for sure. You got to go find a former crew chief, and maybe there's a spot for someone there. Maybe Andy Petrie, who's now retired from Richard Childress Racing. Maybe he could step in that role, but losing Steve Letarte would be huge for NBC, but it would be a huge win for Prime or Warner Brothers if they were to pick him up. So, yeah, I mean, we could potentially see a booth. Could you imagine Marty Smith, Dale Jr., and Steve Letarte? That would be something. And then all their spokespeople, agents, and whatnot from Letarte, Alexander, Marty Smith, they all declined comment. So I guess I don't know what that tells me. That doesn't really tell me anything because you could overthink it either way. You can think, oh, that means they've signed the deal, or it means, oh, they don't really care. They're not actually going to do it. So, it's not worth looking into. And then later down the line, it says other names who are said to be hot commodities in the market include Fox Sports' Jamie McMurray, the 2010 Daytona 500 winner who has become well regarded for his commentary in the studio for Fox's NASCAR coverage, along with a recent appearance in the booth for an Xfinity Series race in Portland. Fox will have what appears to be a slimmed-down NASCAR portfolio next year, dropping the number of races it's airing from 18 to 14 and eliminating Race Hub, which could come with some commensurate workforce reductions or reassignments. And then, of course, Fox's current booth is Joy, Boyer, and Harvick. So, yeah, it's almost the same thing for Adam Alexander is having to go through, where Fox is really kind of reducing what they're doing. They no longer have Race Hub. They only have the 14 Cup races, and I think they still have trucks, but Jamie McMurray, what are you going to do? You're not on Race Hub anymore, and, the booth doesn't have an opening for you. So what is your option? It's to go somewhere else. And Jamie McMurray, I really like his analysis on the on Race Hub. I always liked it, or pre-race shows for Fox. So I think whoever ends up getting him will have some great analysis from McMurray. As for the booth, not sure if he'll get a role there. Maybe if he goes to the CW for the Xfinity or something, but in terms of looking for a more permanent stake, a more permanent job, McMurray would probably have to go elsewhere outside of Fox. And then it says NBC's booth is in flux with Earnhardt having left last year. NBC plans to have Lee Diffie take over as its lead play-by-play announcer sometime after he works the Paris Games. NBC's current booth is Rick Allen, Letarte, and Jeff Burton. With the possibility of Diffie replacing Allen full-time next year, Allen could also be a candidate somewhere else. Now, as for Rick Allen, a lot of people give Rick Allen crap because he messes up sometimes. He trips over his words. He sometimes says the 7 of Kyle Busch or something, or the 17 of Brad Keselowski. Sometimes he just messes up. People make mistakes. But Rick Allen, when he's at the top of his game, is some of the greatest calls. That call from the 7th championship that Jimmy Johnson won was one of the greatest calls of all time, and I will die on that hill. So I think Rick Allen could definitely find a place somewhere else. I don't know where it would be, but, he could potentially re-team up with Dale Jr. at Warner Brothers Discovery TNT. He could team up with him at Prime Video, so I think there's a place for Rick Allen somewhere. But as for Lee Diffie at NBC, oh my goodness. Yes, just yes. Lee Diffie, go listen to his Indianapolis 500 calls. Go listen to his U.S. Olympic track and field calls. Lee Diffie does not have bad calls, ever. He perfectly calls everything. He sets it up perfectly. He knows exactly when to say it. Lee Diffie is perfect. When he's calling the races this fall, that last lap at Talladega, that is going to be something else. Whoever wins the championship, they're going to get an all-time call for a championship. So Lee Diffie at NBC, that is about the biggest win that NBC picks up in this, is that Lee Diffie is going to be in their NASCAR booth. It's a big loss for IndyCar, honestly, but Lee Diffie in the NASCAR booth is something else. That is a huge win. But long video, I know, but yes, we had to talk about the possibilities of our future TV leaders. The future people we'll be watching on television. People who would be calling these races, doing sideline reporting, doing the pre-race show. We got to know who these people are. So these are some of your candidates, according to Adam Stern. You want to read the full report? Should be in the description. If not, then comment, and I will add it to the description. But as for everything else, it's the only news so far today. We got Pocono this weekend. We got a triple header. The Trucks race is tonight-ish. It's like late afternoon, early evening. But then we got Xfinity Series tomorrow. We got the Cup Series on Sunday. And then we only have one more race after Pocono, and we have a 2-week break. I don't know what I'm going to do during that.